This episode of the Small Town Western New York Companion podcast was brought to you by the following West Seneca businesses. Alex and Anthony's Wallpaper and Decor. Alex and Anthony's Wallpaper and Decor has a large selection of in-stock wallpaper available, as well as the current York catalogs for order. They're always willing to help you with any project, big or small. McCormick Cabinetry. Let McCormick Cabinetry, cabinet replacement experts, do the work. Set up an appointment with their design expert and they'll come to you. Experts in the field, they'll help you visualize color choices, wood options, and the project's layout with custom 3D design renderings and more. Vintage House Soap Factory. Vintage House Soap Factory creates fresh bath and beauty products daily. Making each product by hand in small batches allows them to make sure each batch is filled with all natural ingredients that will benefit your skin. The shop features a variety of locally made products as well as their own in-house made soaps. Friars Gallery and Weld Shop. Friars is a father and son, locally owned small business featuring a gallery and weld shop that specializes in a variety of categories from aluminum and wood decorative pieces to custom metal fabrication and design featuring their famous sculpture buffaloes and more. For this podcast, I'm going to stay out of the way and hand over the reins to Tom Schobert, the curator at the West Seneca History Museum, and let him tell you all about its history, its collections, and a few anecdotes. He's vastly knowledgeable and a great speaker, and the museum in West Seneca makes a perfect day trip to anyone interested in Western New York's early history.
Well, the Historical Society has been in existence since the mid-1940s, but at that time did not have a house to house the permanent collection, which they had been accumulating. But that changed in the early 50s when the United Church of Christ on Main Street in West Seneca decided they wanted to expand their parking lot. They're right up around the corner from us here on Main Street. And on the property that they had purchased for their new parking lot was a building, which was an original Ebenezer era house. And at the time it was unoccupied, and the church told the town of West Seneca, well, if you'd like that building, you can have it, but you have to move it. So the town accepted that, and a site was prepared. The land had been owned by a prominent local physician, Dr. Enger, and he provided the land for the town. A foundation was built, and they literally picked up the house on Main Street, rolled it down the hill, brought it over, and set it on the new foundation. And then when that was done, they added obviously a basement area, which is part of our exhibit space, and a back part of the building that also is exhibit space. But the building itself dated back to the 1840s. It was built by the Ebenezer Society. At the time they built it, there was just the front portion, which was 2 sitting rooms on the first floor and 2 bedrooms on the second floor, and the building would have been occupied by 2 families. They sold the building to another German family, not an Ebenezer family, when the Ebenezers all moved out to Iowa in the 1850s. And a family by the name of Mayer, no relation to the Mayer cider mill people, but a Mayer family, German people, bought the building. They added a dining room, which we're standing in right now, and a kitchen, because the Ebenezer houses did not have dining rooms and kitchens. They had centralized cookhouses and centralized dining halls. So the Mayer family added those rooms onto it, and subsequently the house then passed through other owners until the point in time where the town of West Seneca acquired it from the United Church of Christ and moved it down here to form our museum.
Wow. And then, so now where are we in the history? We're right.
Well, we're when the museum was
just starting
founded.
to get the inception of
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And you can continue now.
So the Historical Society at that point finally had a home, and they had a place to put on display the artifacts that they had acquired. And we still continue to acquire. This was in the 1950s. We're in the early 2000s, and we're still acquiring. People will donate items to us. We have somewhat of a diversified collection of things. We have some items that date from over 3,000 years ago, some native artifacts, right on up through just about every era of history to the present day. We have an extensive collection of household items. We have some items that have still stayed here from the Ebenezer era, which was a relatively short period of time between the 1840s, the early 1850s. But many of the other items in the museum are from other time periods of American history. Most of the items in this room, for example, date from a little bit later, of course, than the Ebenezer era. But we also have a very extensive collection of military items, and again, donated by West Seneca residents. Everything from, well, we have some Revolutionary War weapons. We have a lot of Civil War items, Spanish-American War, a great deal of, we have a fantastic collection of World War I artifacts, uniforms, personal items that soldiers carried, a lot of World War II items, Korean War, and up into the later conflicts, the Gulf Wars and later eras that service people have donated to us. So we're proud of the collection. We also have a lot of farm implements, communications related things, everything from early Victrolas up to CD players and everything in between. So railroad items, it's just an extensive collection, and it all relates to West Seneca. When people approach us that they want to donate an item, our criteria is it West Seneca related? Did it belong to someone from our town? Does it relate to our town's history? That type of thing. And as I say, people are still bringing things in, particularly in the years when people are closing out a home, for example, and they discover that they've got all sorts of neat things in their basements or attics or whatever, and they don't know what to do with it, so they contact us. We can't take everything. There are times we have to refuse something. Either we don't have the storage space for it, the display space, or it doesn't fit with our mission of showcasing items related to West Seneca and its history. But it's a challenge to keep the exhibits fresh. If you come into a museum and you look around, you like everything you saw, and you come back 6 months later and everything looks exactly like it looked when you were here the last time, you might wonder why you came back. So we're constantly looking to rearrange, bring things out of storage, put them on display, and put other things away. Theoretically, a museum is supposed to keep about 90% of its collection in storage and display about 10%. We're not quite at that. We're probably more of the 75% on display and 25% in storage. But we're continually trying to rotate things. We have a temporary display area where we have displays that are only for a couple of months. We might feature a local organization. We had one on the Boy Scouts recently. We had one that featured the activities of the West Seneca Women's Club, who was celebrating their 50th anniversary. The West Seneca Police Auxiliary, which was an important part of assistance to law enforcement. And they ultimately went out of business, but they had some artifacts that they wanted to donate to us. So we put a temporary display up. Things of that nature that we can feature and have people come in and take a look at. We had one on Southgate Plaza, and some of the stores that have been there in the past, some artifacts from some of the businesses that people remembered but are no longer there. But the rest of the collection, there's main areas that stay fairly unchanged, but we're always looking to kind of freshen those up and make them look a little bit different and bring some items out that had been hidden. We have one item that we just recently put on display. It's probably the most significant artifact that we have in the museum. As I mentioned earlier, the Mayer family, who owned this house following the Ebenezer's departure for Iowa in the 1850s, the Mayer family was in this house. They had been given, or the patriarch of the family, Frederick Mayer, had been given a German language Psalter, a book of Psalms. It had been given to him by a member of the Ebenezer community. And it was used in this house, probably used in this very room that we're standing in right now. And the Mayer family eventually relocated to Dallas, Texas. And in the late 80s, they sent to the Historical Society this German Psalter that had been owned by their family since the 1850s. And they said this really belongs in your building because, of course, your museum was our house. And so we wanted to donate this back to you. So we had it. It was in our collection, but it was in storage. And several months ago, our curator found it in going through some items, and we examined this, and we thought, well, this is fantastic because this book was used in this house by the family that lived here. So we had it professionally framed, put into a kind of a mini display case that's behind me here as we're talking, and just put it on display recently. And it's in fact, right next to the item is a portrait of the family that owned it. So we feel really, we're very excited when we put this out on display because, as I say, it's probably one of the most significant artifacts that we have in our collection because it related to the Ebenezer heritage, and then the family that lived in this building in the mid-1800s.
Well, that's about it for this episode of the Small Town Western New York Companion Podcast. Thanks for listening, and remember to support the small towns of Western New York in any way you can. They're full of great businesses and people who'd love to see you in their towns. The Small Town Western New York Companion Podcast, the TV series, is a presentation of Discovering Western New York and A.A. Augustine Media Co. and can be found everywhere you listen to your favorite podcasts. Thanks for listening.